My name is Ayola and I'm a commercial lawyer currently working in-house. I also used to work in a law firm as well as a Big Four consulting firm. In this video, I thought I'd share 3 tips for junior lawyers. Tip number 1, taking notes. As a junior lawyer, you'll be taking notes every day. You'll be taking notes when you have interactions with a senior lawyer in your team, and it is a good idea to leave those interactions with a clear idea of what is expected of you. You'll also be taking notes when you have meetings with lawyers from a different practice group, for example. And of course, you'll be taking notes when you have client meetings. In the beginning of your career, it is unlikely that you'll get to speak much during client meetings or say anything at all. So what is the point of you attending those meetings in the first place? In my view, there are 2 things. The first one is you're there to learn by osmosis and observe the senior lawyers in your team. You can observe their communication style or how they handle questions from the clients. The second one, it is much easier to actually do the work when you hear what the client wants firsthand, as opposed to having it summarized to you by someone else in your team at a later stage. When you take notes, it is good practice to write down the names of anyone who attended the meeting, the date and the time, any important deadlines, and bullet points of what the client wants or the client's instructions. There's something else that I do which is completely optional. Sometimes I write down what the client says verbatim in my notes, and I then use the same words back to them when I send my work. So let's say you work in a law firm and your client comes to you and asks you to review a contract under which they'll be supplying some sort of service to a third party. And they tell you that they really want to do the work, so they don't want you to make too many changes, only the important ones, and they want you to keep changes to a minimum. When you actually complete your work and send back that contract that you've reviewed back to the client, you can then say something along the lines of, here's a contract with my changes, I kept changes to a minimum, focusing on the important legal risks to your business. That way it shows that you actually listened during the meeting and you're delivering exactly what the client asked for. Number 2, keep track of deadlines. It might not be the case in the beginning, but over time you'll be working on multiple matters and multiple tasks, and often those things will be due at the same time or very close to each other. Taking good notes certainly helps with that, but when you have a big matter that you're working on or you have multiple things that you're working on, it is very easy to forget about the smaller things that are due. So I definitely recommend recording any deadlines in Outlook, setting automatic reminders so that you actually receive a notification when something is due. If you will be relying on Outlook, then you'll need to actually record any of the deadlines and set reminders, and you'll also need to frequently review what's in your calendar. If you know something is due soon, it is perfectly fine to follow up with a senior member of your team if you've completed your work and you're just waiting for their feedback. If you're facing some challenges, in my view, it is a good idea to let the manager in your team know so that they can offer support, and they should offer support if it's a healthy workplace. They can ask others to help you with your workload, or at the very least, they'll know that you're at your full capacity, so they won't give you any more work. Number 3, stay organized when it comes to your documents. When you work in a fast-paced environment, it is very easy to dismiss tasks that appear to be unimportant, like making sure that you name all your files the same. Most likely your team already has an established naming conventions for the files, and if everyone in your team is actually using it, it might be very obvious. It is a good idea to pay attention to the detail here. For example, does each word start with a capital letter? How is the date written? Is it written in full, or do they just use the numbers? If your team doesn't have an established naming convention, then you can at least create one for your files. Some of the things to keep in mind: the name should be consistent, the purpose of the document should be clear, and you may also want to include a version number. And those were 3 tips for me if you're just starting out as a junior lawyer. I hope you found them helpful, and thank you so much for watching.